let's put money together. Let's start a program. Let's start a business, and let's just start a program. Come out the other side of the program. They'll own some of the business, and they'll be able to go out and be the ambassadors to stop violence. Because I can't, me not being from Peckham, I can't go into Peckham and tell the man them, yo, stop juking each other. Because I'm not in the middle of the wars. I don't know who's who and what's what. So they'll just tell me to fuck off.
From Peckham, you can. Do you know what I mean?
You
Even can link with them though. That's the key, isn't it?
No, I can, but I would never have as much influence as one of their generals from there who raised themselves up to a certain level. Like, all right, Glasgow used to be the murder capital of Europe, right? And it used to be one of the knife crime capitals of the world. The way that they was able to solve it is that the police had enough shit on the Glasgow gang members. They went to the Glasgow gang members, the gang leaders, and they said to them, man, yo, you guys are going to get the mandem in check. And if you don't get the mandem in check, we'll lock you up. And if you get the mandem in check and stop them from killing each other, then we'll fund you. And they actually funded programs to be able to mentor these youths and stop them from stabbing each other. And it went from being the knife crime capital to being like 5th in like 2 years. So I was just like, well, that's what needs to be done. But the British government isn't going to support that and doesn't support that because they need that so that they can continue to demonize black youths so that they can continue to get funding for the police. That's what the Mark Duggan thing was about. That's why they shot him, because the police was being defunded. And in the same weekend, I wasn't even in London by then. I was in Leeds by then. And at the same weekend, my brethren got murdered in front of me. And then they tried to make out like it was something to do with London riots. And they did the same thing in Manny, and they did the same thing in Birmingham. And I remember sitting there with my brethren, like his head, he got shot in his face with a shotgun. His head was falling apart in my lap. And I remember sitting there for an hour while the police, well, 45 minutes, while the police who were armed came and made a line this side of me and a line that side of me. One side was a Pakistani community. One side was a Jamaican community in Leeds. And what they wanted is they wanted to create, like, incite a riot and create violence between these two communities because it was Pakistani man that shot my brother who was from the Caribbean. The ambulance was there. The hospital was only 1 kilometer away, and I'm sitting. They wanted him to die in it. So I was like, you need to let me get him into an ambulance, like fighting the police. But I couldn't get off him because if I got off him, then he would lose too much blood. So I had to like keep pressure, all of that shit. So I was in a really bad space. And then what happened was after they finally took him in the ambulance, because they saw that I was a trained soldier in battlefield casualty drills. They saw that he wasn't going to die. So they let him get into, they put him into the ambulance. The ambulance went off.
Right.
And then when the ambulance went off, the armed police was replaced. I've got pictures on my phone. The armed police was replaced with dog police. And then they started letting the dogs off on people, right? That night, they left a police car in the ends. Never happens. The police car got set on fire. And then they tried to say Leeds, riots in Leeds, fires in London, and try and put them as the same thing. But it wasn't the same thing. That had nothing to do with the London riots. The man then was vexed because of the way that police treated them, not because they was pissed off about Mark Duggan. They wasn't even looking into that.
Am I missing something, Shaka? Is there some connection between you and Islam? Because like I'm seeing a lot of stuff about bad mouthing Muslims, or what's going on?
Because I was questioning what good Islam has done in Africa. Because I was saying to them that them same people there, rather than study the history and the facts of the trans-Saharan trafficking of human beings, the trans-Saharan slavery, which created the golden age of Islam. Everybody wants to talk about the golden age of Islam, but that was created the same as how Wall Street was created in the USA. That was created off the back of trafficking us, making us eunuchs, taking us across the desert and making us soldiers to fight in the Muslim holy wars. This has all been documented. There's a book that you can read called The Veiled Genocide. There's another book that you can read called The Legacy of Islam in Africa by John Alambila Azuma, which just details how African women were taken as sex slaves for the concubines, for the harems of the Arab men, and how African men were taken and having their tings cut off and made eunuchs so they could fight in the Muslim holy wars. And then the only thing that these people can say to me is, what about Bilal? Or they reference the Quran. And I'm like, fam, the Quran is not facts as to what happened. What happened was we was destroyed by Arabs using the pretense they were real Muslims or they weren't real Muslims. They don't even discuss it until I bring it up. They don't even talk about it. So it's just like, all right, cool. So you want to get vexed with me, who's just speaking about what really went on. But when I'm cussing out Christian colonialism, they're silent. So it's like, no, fuck off. If you want to talk about what happened in its entirety from the 6th century all the way until they ended slavery in Mauritania, which is like in the 1960s, or you don't want to talk about it. If you don't want to talk about it, then don't talk about anything else either. Don't talk about Christianity. Don't talk about Judaism. Don't talk about colonialism, because you're not going to talk about your own colonialism. Don't talk about Christianity. Don't talk about Judaism. Don't talk about colonialism, because you're not going to talk about your own colonialism. And also the black clay, the black soil, like black land. People didn't refer to themselves as black in Africa. I've traveled all over Africa. They're not. They're Ga, they're Fanti, they're Ewe, they're Yoruba, they're Khoisan. As soon as you come out of Africa, that's when people start talking about black. In Africa, people don't talk about black. We never talked about black because you came from an ethnic group, and that was your identity wasn't based on being other to white.
Yeah. I get that, and I've kind of like shared the same thing, but obviously, what I've been shown is that the black category is one that people are going to see you by. So essentially, people are identifying themselves based on a term that others believe them to be, in it, based on the label that other people wanna give to them. And it's like, how do you rally the people? This is what has been asked to me when I've kind of said similar things to you about the black label. People say, well, how do you rally the people without using that label?
What do you mean? How do I rally them without using that label?
How do you rally the people from Africa, the Caribbean, the diaspora,
Pan-African, straight.
the Pan-African, bro? Like, you know what I mean? In
You
itself,
what?
I don't believe in one Africa. I don't think Africa's ever been like that. I think that's
But Africa doesn't believe in one Africa either, but it makes economical sense.
why are we gonna label them with Pan African? Like when the even Pan, that's a Greek word. I don't even see what it has to do with our people. And I don't think it was a black man that came up with the original terminology of Pan African. That's my opinion. But like, you feel like Pan African is a better label than black.
Um,
Like,
I think that black is limited. I think that black doesn't tell anybody about who you are. It just is a color, right? And if you want to get into it, it's a political term, which means that you are defined by your otherness to white. That's all it means. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't say which country, what nation is black. There's no black nation.
right. There's no black nation. I would agree with you on that one. So, in terms of like what's going on right now, like with the political unrest, what's your views on Black Lives Matter?
I think that whole thing got fam, like BLM. If you want to actually talk about BLM and what BLM is supposed to be, as in like in the 70s, Black Liberation Movement, Black Liberation Army was a complete political liberation with an economic agenda where we carried gun and we educated our own children and we had our own hospitals. It wasn't our lives matter, hands up, don't shoot. Like we've become brand ambassadors for our own murders. And I don't believe that makes sense. So I'm not with that. Like, yeah, sometimes people, it might, just like using black, you say Black Lives Matter to engage an audience to then educate them. But I don't actually think that we need to go around telling people that our lives matter. I think that we need to strap up, if you're allowed to strap up in them countries, and arm up and shoot back. I don't believe that you're supposed to say people we're going to gun battles with a sign. It doesn't make sense.
I see. I see. I never really thought that you'd be. I never thought you'd be on that. I always taken you as quite a liberal moderate kind of person. I never really seen you as a hardliner. Still,
Yeah, but like,
soften that message, or like wait for strategic plans to release that message, or what?
now's not the time for waiting. People are getting killed right now. Strap up. If you have a right to bear arms, you should strap up. And the reason that I say this is that, like, I'm gonna walk into my own power when I move to Africa, which will be very soon, because my mother called me Shaka after Shaka Zulu, who was the greatest black African military leader that ever existed, apart from them man there in Haiti. He was one of the best ones. So I went to the army. I understand what weapon systems are. I went to make sure that, well, actually, I went because I was hustling and I wanted to get out of that. But when I was in there, I made sure I was the best damn soldier. I stopped drinking. I never smoked. I was always like the best with the straps. My man, them, who I was in the army with, I'm still close to and employing them, keeping them tight for the right time. Because them man there, they don't believe in the army. They don't believe in white. When I went to the army, my mom was bawling tears. She's like, I called you Shaka Zulu, but not so you go to a white man army. She was bawling. She's like, what are you doing? Why are you going there? You might die in Iraq. So I was just like, well, I didn't know what else to do because I was hustling and I couldn't get a job where I was at. And I wanted to get a job because all the man then was getting banged up. All the man then was getting bus after. All the man, I was like, so what? I'm just going to go to Penn. So I was either going to go to Penn or go to the army. So I was like, let me go to the army and learn straps. Now I know straps in it. I know straps and military tactics better than most man.
Was it an active battle?
You are?
Active battle.
A couple times, but I never killed anybody.
You ever shoot anybody?
No.
Okay. So yeah,
we bust after people, but we never. As far as I'm aware, I didn't kill nobody, so I don't have dead Iraqis on my conscience.
and like as far as me and you boys, we got a little bit of history, like going back and forth on the internet, seeing each other around in London and whatnot. I've got to be real with you. Like, obviously, when I first became aware of you, good, cool dude. I think there's a couple things there that started to make me like look at you a bit sideways. Not that it matters what I do, but the army thing was a big thing because for me, walking the walk I'm walking, I feel like anybody who goes to the army, they get programmed. I don't really trust no one that because I feel like, what are you, like a MK Ultra sleeper cell Manchurian candidate? A lot of people that go to the army come out and they spit a lot about truth, and I feel like this is what makes them easily controlled opposition, because I feel like you can go to the army and get your mind fucking programmed and come out and forget what they program with you on, forget what they program you with until you press that button and you know what I'm trying to say. That was my fear. That was my fear.
Yeah, some people do that, innit? Like, I don't know people who did that. I know a lot of people who I was in the army with have killed themselves. I don't know anybody who was programmed personally, but I feel like that's more of an American thing. The Americans, they go deep with it because their army is way bigger and they put way more money into it. Whereas the British army, when we was looking at the Americans, we was like, they're the ones who are just mad killers. We, a lot of the time, there was war and stuff going on, but it wasn't like there was so much money. A third of all of their spending in the US goes on defense. So they had more money, they had the best equipment, everything. We didn't have it the same way as them. And so I figure, like, if you're going to put multiple millions, billions into a psychological operation, then you have to be bathing in dough. And the British army, like, a lot of the time we didn't have the right equipment and shit, let alone to be doing that. But I'm not saying that didn't happen. What I am saying, though, is that in order to do that, you have to get somebody who is susceptible, and then you have to mold them and then break them and all of that stuff. And none of that stuff never happened to me. And you can ask anybody who I was in the army with. I don't know where they are or what they're doing now, but that shit never happened to me. I don't know anybody it happened to, and that shit never happened to me. I never did anything weird. I didn't trust any of them man there. Me, and there was like 4 other Jamaican guys. We stayed together in our own rooms, in our own kind of area, when all of the white man was going out and getting drunk and stuff. Because sometimes when the white man would get drunk, they would come and try and kill us at night. like it was a mad thing. So we'd had to like be in our rooms with knives and crossbows and shit.
You're talking about fellow British officers.
Not officers, soldiers. And when they get drunk, they would go get drunk, and then once they would get drunk, they would want to come on war with us. That's why I started boxing, so that if anybody came for me, I'd be able to spin their jaw. So sometimes I didn't chill with no European man them in the army. Like we kept ourselves with ourselves. Yeah, we'd work with them, but we didn't chill with them. Like any of my boys, like, and some of them will be coming to Africa with me. You can speak to them about what used to go on. Like us, man, we kept ourselves to ourselves because them man there was weird.
Yeah, people are saying like don't judge you for your past choices and that, and yeah, people are talking about don't judge on your past. And do you know what? I'm not a man to judge somebody on their past. Like I had a impression. I think I've been quite vocal and upfront with you over the years. Would you agree, Shaka? Like when you see Red Pill Chill pop up, you know I'm definitely atting you and talking directly to you, right?
Yeah, yeah, you're entitled to like do your thing. I'm just like all of that energy.
Yeah.
I would like for all of the energy that there is, because the thing is that I'm a man that, yeah, I'll talk and stuff on the internet, but I'm not on anybody else's IG. I don't at anybody really. I'm not on their IG. I don't go into their comment section because I would rather, like for instance, when that thing happened down at Grenfell, I was organizing the man them. I was training all the man them, 50 man, training them properly for drills to be able to protect the community. If so, the police wanted to come and cause riots in the community. So I was teaching them on their riot training.
In the Grenfell community, like I heard a few things. Like, what in your experience, did you take a step back from stuff there? Like, did something happen? Well, go on, let it be known.
No, I was right in the middle of it. I was in Uganda, saw that stuff happening, and then went straight back to ends. I was in Uganda at a refugee camp trying to learn about why Uganda is the best place in Africa to be a refugee. I wanted to know why everybody was fleeing there. So I was like, all right, this is happening where I'm from, or at least where I've established myself. Let me go back, be in the community, be vocal. And what happened at them times there is that they expected there to be complete civil unrest, and the police and everybody just deserted everybody. So everybody started becoming a self-organizing unit. They started like taking care of people, dropping off donations. All of that stuff was really happening. And then